All right, folks, grab your rain gear and steel yourselves, because this recap plunges us deep into the chaos, drama, and heartbreak of Deadliest Catch Season 21, Episode 8. An episode that delivers gut-wrenching tension, fierce storms, relentless crew problems, and proof that Alaska's crab fishing is the deadliest game around. From career-ending confrontations to life-saving root beer floats and vomit spewing across the decks, this hour throws everything at our fishermen except their own kitchen sinks. Let's roll into every twist, every headache, and every emotional punch that makes this episode one of the season's most memorable rides. Right out of the gate, we're reminded why the Bering Sea is nicknamed the Casino by Captain Jonathan A.D. Every pot dropped into the icy waves is a gamble. Will it be crab gold or a gut punch loss? This episode wastes no time setting the stakes. John wonders if he's about to hit the jackpot or snake eyes, and the tension is thick. Alarms blare and tempers flare as the crew tackles another brutal round of king crab and Bairdi fishery seasons. You can feel the high stress energy radiating from the deck ECT breakdowns, crippling sickness, and the ever-looming threat of lost paychecks hang over everything. Let's kick things off in Dutch Harbor, where Captain Keith Colburn lands after cashing a massive 900,000 check for his Red King crab quota. But this triumph is short-lived as Keith rushes to help his brother Monte and a battered crew tie up the 155-foot wizard in winds that nearly hit 50 knots, conditions that would make even the most seasoned sailor sweat. Monty's got a fresh crew and a new deck boss, Calvin, who claims decades of experience. But Calvin's rough edges on deck quickly clash with OJ and Keith. When the lines tangle and the boat's at risk in dangerous weather, Calvin melts down, barking orders and losing control. Keith has to step in again, and the whole scene teeters on disaster. It's a mess of miscommunication, bruised egos, and mounting pressure, and the camera never lets you forget just how close disaster is when the wind picks up. The crew barely gets through the tie-up and immediately turns to rigging the next round of pots. Calvin, restless and eager, pushes for a draw, an advance payment. He insists he's owed $7,500, even though he hasn't hauled a single pot on this boat. Keith, old school and skeptical, refuses, warning Calvin that responsibility cuts both ways. There's a crack in the trust, and you can feel Keith's doubts boiling over. As soon as Keith turns his back, Calvin's blowing up Monte's phone for cash, pleading poverty, mortgages, and car payments. The crew is barely held together. Keith is fed up. Across the rough 170-mile expanse of the Bering Sea, Jake Anderson's Titan Explorer faces its own hell. The stakes: a nerve-shredding 3 million Bairdi crab quota. With a 4-day lead on the fleet, Jake's optimism crashes into reality. The sea throws gigantic waves at the deck. Day tank water contamination threatens to destroy the engines and bring everything to a halt. Frantically, Jake and Philippi battle to fix the leak, but time ticks away and Jake's lead evaporates. He's on the verge of a breakdown, venting to his partner Jenna about the overwhelming pressure. Jake hates fishing for Bairdi. With the mounting mechanical disasters, he's forced to limp back to port, clawing for any help he can find. The tide's against him. You feel his frustration as he's buried under 400,000 pounds of crab quota and personal baggage. Cut to the Time Bandit, and things aren't any better. A norovirus outbreak rips through the crew. Captain Jonathan, a true old-school fisherman, fights to keep spirits up and crew on their feet. His quirky obsession with milk, vitamin D, zinc, and the bizarre fact that you could theoretically survive on it becomes the rallying point. He passes out cartons to the team, hoping it staves off the flu. The crab count is uneven. Pots yield 9s and 15s, never enough for the planned offload. But John can't afford delays. His offload date is locked and the clock is ticking. It's pure grind, and the sick crew struggles to keep up. John's working on borrowed time, chugging milk, and crossing his fingers. Back on the Wizard, Calvin's meltdown reaches a breaking point. When Keith and Monte receive a desperate message from Calvin, demanding 10,000 to cover his bills and threatening to quit. It's the final straw. Calvin's claims about past experience don't add up. The boss he cites doesn't even remember him, and his attitude sours the whole crew. Brr. Keith and Monte make the tough call. Dallin see Calvin's out. The firing is quick and brutal, and Keith sends him off with just 2,000, a plane ticket, and a stern warning. Calvin explodes, but the crew breathes a sigh of relief. This is the epitome of what it means when someone's not cut out for the life. One bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. As Jake and Felipe limp the Titan Explorer back to Dutch Harbor, sleepless and exhausted, the diagnosis from Jake's doctor isn't good. The physical and emotional stress catches up. Panic attacks, trauma from past tragedies, and the recent loss of Uncle Nick cloud Jake's mind. The episode dips into Jakey's vulnerable side, revealing how he still grapples with losing his father years ago, and how the latest death triggered buried pain. Crab fishing can be brutal physically, but the emotional toll is just as real. On the Time Bandit, the norovirus is merciless. Vomiting and weakness sweep through the deck. Freddie, Jared, Stephen, Russell, Teddy, and even Jonathan's brother Neil go down, barfing and unable to work. The crew doesn't give up, though. John himself, 62 years old, jumps onto the deck as a reinforcement. He jokes that he's only half as good as he ever was, but throws the hook and hauls pots with the men, rallying them through misery. Root beer floats become a symbol of comfort, and amidst the chaos, John and Neil share brotherly banter, a momentary break from the madness. But Calvin, now fired, lingers in Dutch Harbor instead of leaving. Keith, sick of dealing with him, tries to get Calvin onto a flight, but Calvin resists, threatening lawsuits and continuing to pester other boats for work. Ultimately, Calvin does get a new gig on the Aleutian No. 1, but not before Keith cancels his ticket and washes his hands of the drama. The crew feels a huge relief, closing the book on a toxic chapter. In the episode's closing beats, we see hope flickering back into Jake's eyes. After a dark night and a soul-bearing conversation with Jenna, he's back on the water, setting pots and praying for a big catch. The Titan Explorer lands on a pile of birdie, much to the crew's excitement. There are cheers and palpable joy. Maybe this run will be the one to turn everything around for Jake and his crew. John and his team, battered by flu, keep grinding, too. We're a machine that don't stop, John declares, and after everything, it's clear that stubborn grit is sometimes the only way through rough seas. So, to wrap it all up, this is an episode packed with non-stop drama. High stakes fishing, broken trust, leadership put to the test, raw heartbreak, and moments of unexpected camaraderie. The Bering Sea throws everything at these crews, but they relentlessly push forward, no matter how sick, tired, or emotionally wrecked they get. Calvin's short, chaotic stint on the Wizard ends in flames, and Jake finds the literal and figurative fuel to try again. The flu might win a few battles, but on the decks of these boats, giving up is never an option. If you love diving into this wild ride with me, let's talk about your thoughts down in the comments. What was your favorite moment or biggest shock this episode? Smash that like button. Share this with your fellow Deadliest Catch fans, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dive recaps and ending explained breakdowns. Until next time, anchors away.